What if the secret to raising a calm, resilient, and emotionally intelligent child isn't found in stricter rules or better rewards, but in how we help their brain say yes to life? Every parent knows that moment when your child's emotions seem to take over, the tears, the shouting, that no, that echoes through the house. You try reasoning, maybe even raising your voice, and still, nothing changes. It feels as if your child's mind has shut down, like a door slammed tight. And in that moment, you wonder, why can't they just listen? But what if those moments aren't about disobedience at all? What if they're signs of a brain overwhelmed, one that's crying out, not for control, but for connection? That's where the yes brain child begins its quiet revolution. In this book, Dr. Daniel Siegel and Dr. Tina Payne Bryson, both experts in child psychology and neuroscience, show us a completely different way to see and respond to our children's behavior. It's not about forcing compliance or perfection. It's about helping kids build the inner strength to face life with curiosity, confidence, and calm. They call it the yes brain. The yes brain. Chapter 1. The yes brain is not about saying yes to every demand or letting children do whatever they want. It's about cultivating a mindset, and more importantly, a brain state, that stays open rather than shutting down. A yes brain is flexible, curious, and able to handle the bumps and bruises of daily life with resilience. It says, I can figure this out, instead of, I can't. It asks, what can I learn from this, instead of, what's wrong with me? When a child operates from their yes brain, they can pause before reacting, think before shouting, and recover more quickly when things don't go their way. But when they slip into a no brain, which is reactive, rigid, fearful, and defensive, everything feels like a threat. They lose access to empathy, creativity, and logic. Every parent has seen that switch happen. One moment your child is calm and cooperative, and the next, they're overwhelmed and unreachable. Siegel and Bryson gently remind us that this isn't defiance, it's neuroscience. A child's brain is still under construction, especially the parts responsible for emotional control, empathy, and reasoning. The job of a parent, then, is not to punish the meltdown or shut down the emotion, but to help the child's developing brain return to its yes state, calm, connected, child's brain as a house. Downstairs lives the emotional, impulsive part, the part that reacts in the moment, fights, cries, or runs away. Upstairs is the thoughtful part, where logic, reflection, and compassion live. When a child is upset, it's as if the stairs between these floors have collapsed. They can't reach their calm, rational, upstairs brain. Our role isn't to yell up the stairs or force them to rebuild faster, it's to patiently help them reconnect. And that's the first great shift this book offers parents, to stop seeing discipline as punishment, and start seeing it as teaching. The goal is not to control our children's behavior in the moment, but to build their capacity to manage themselves in the future. One of the most powerful stories Siegel and Bryson share is about a boy named Ethan who has explosive reactions whenever he loses at a game. His parents, exhausted from constant battles, usually scold him for being a sore loser. But instead, the authors guide them to pause, connect, and help Ethan name his frustration. They teach him how to notice what's happening in his body when he feels angry, his clenched fists, his hot face, and to take deep breaths before reacting. Over time, something changes. Ethan begins to notice his feelings before they take over. He starts to say, I'm mad, instead of throwing the game pieces across the room. It's not instant magic, but it's real growth. His parents have helped him wire new neural connections that allow him to stay in his yes brain even under stress. This is what makes the yes brain child so different from traditional parenting books. It doesn't offer quick fix tactics or reward charts. Instead, it helps us understand how a child's brain actually works, and how, by meeting them with empathy and structure, we can strengthen the neural pathways that lead to balance, resilience, and kindness. As parents, it's easy to fall into the no brain ourselves. We get frustrated, triggered, and overwhelmed, our own emotional circuits fire up, and suddenly we're reacting instead of responding. Siegel and Bryson remind us that every interaction with our child is an opportunity not just to shape their brain, but to shape our own. When we model calm, we invite calm. When we model curiosity, we invite curiosity. They call this co-regulation. It means our brains and our children's brains are constantly influencing each other. When a child is upset, our calm presence can literally help their nervous system settle, just as our frustration can escalate theirs. In this way, parenting becomes less about managing behavior and more about managing energy, ours and theirs. And so the yes brain begins not with a child, but with a parent's willingness to pause and ask, what does my child need right now to feel safe enough to learn? We begin to see parenting in a new light. It's not about having perfect kids or perfect days, it's about building connection, one moment at a time. Because when a child feels safe, seen, and supported, their brain naturally says yes to growth, learning, and love. In the chapters ahead, Siegel and Bryson take us deeper into the building blocks of the yes brain: balance, resilience, insight, and empathy, and show us how to cultivate them through everyday challenges. Chapter 2. Balance is what allows a child to ride the waves of emotion without getting swept away. It's not about never feeling upset, angry, or scared, it's about learning how to come back to calm after being thrown off course. Every parent has seen imbalance in action: the bedtime meltdown that begins with one small no, the argument that spirals into tears, the slammed door after a screen time limit. In these moments, it feels as though your child's emotions have hijacked the whole house. But Siegel and Bryson remind us that these outbursts aren't misbehavior, they're signs of a brain that's lost its footing. Children live close to the edge of imbalance because their nervous systems are still developing. They don't yet have the internal brakes adults use to slow down big feelings. A simple frustration, the wrong color cup, a missing toy, a change in routine, can push them into chaos. And when they're overwhelmed, logic disappears. They can't hear reason or respond to lectures. Our instinct as parents is often to control the situation, to shut down the crying, stop the argument, restore order. But in doing so, we sometimes miss what's really needed: a moment of connection that helps the child find their balance again, not force it. Siegel and Bryson describe balance as the middle space between two extremes: chaos and rigidity. Chaos looks like meltdowns, yelling, and emotional flooding. Rigidity, on the other hand, looks like refusal, perfectionism, or a child who withdraws completely to avoid mistakes. Both are signs of a no brain in action, a brain that's lost its flexibility. The goal isn't to eliminate emotion but to help our kids return to the middle zone, where they can feel their feelings and stay in control of their behavior. Imagine a little girl named Mia who struggles every morning getting ready for school. She wants to choose her clothes, but time is running out. Her mom, frustrated, says, "Just wear what I picked out." Mia bursts into tears. In that moment, her brain tips into chaos, everything feels overwhelming, and her body reacts as if it's under attack. Her mother's irritation, though understandable, adds rigidity to the mix, a power struggle that locks them both into frustration. Now imagine a different approach. Her mom takes a deep breath, kneels down, and says softly, "You're upset because you wanted to pick your clothes today. I get that." This small acknowledgement helps Mia's nervous system relax. Her emotions begin to settle because she feels seen. Once calm returns, her mother can guide her toward balance. "How about you choose your socks and I'll pick your shirt so we can still be on time?" That's a yes brain moment, not permissive, but collaborative. It models emotional regulation, problem solving, and connection. Over time, moments like this teach the child's brain how to restore balance on its own. The science behind this is fascinating. The authors explain that when a child experiences empathy and connection, it activates the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for decision-making and self-control. This upper brain can then regulate the lower brain, where fight, flight, or freeze reactions live. In simple terms, connection literally brings the brain back online. And this works not only for children, but for parents too. Because balance is contagious. A parent who can stay grounded when emotions flare up sends a silent message, it's okay. We can handle this. That calm presence becomes the anchor that keeps the child from drifting too far into chaos or rigidity. Siegel and Bryson suggest simple, everyday ways to practice balance. Pause before reacting. Name the emotion, you're mad, you're disappointed. Then offer comfort before correction. You're not letting bad behavior slide, you're teaching emotional literacy. When kids can name what they feel, they can tame what they feel. They also recommend creating family routines that support balance, regular sleep, healthy meals, downtime without screens, and moments of play that allow the nervous system to reset. These daily rhythms help children feel safe, and a sense of safety is the soil where balance grows. A father describes how his son melts down every evening at homework time. Instead of yelling, the father decides to sit beside him silently for a few minutes, just breathing. After a while, the boy sighs and says, "I hate when I can't get it right." That's the opening the father needed, a moment of emotional honesty born from calm. He replies, "It's okay to hate it. I hate it when things are hard, too. But I know you can handle this." The tension breaks. The boy starts working again, this time with focus. That's balance in action, calm replacing chaos, confidence replacing fear. As parents, we often think balance means perfection, no raised voices, no tears, no mess. But Siegel and Bryson assure us it's not about never losing balance, it's about recovering faster each time we do. The more often we practice coming back to calm, the stronger those neural connections become. Over time, both we and our children can return to center with greater ease. So, when the next outburst happens, and it will, instead of asking, "How do I stop this behavior?" we can ask, "How do I help my child find balance again?" That shift changes everything. And once children begin to master balance, they're ready for the next essential trait of the yes brain, resilience, the power to bounce back after disappointment, to face failure without falling apart, and to see struggle as a path toward growth. Chapter 3. Resilience is what helps a child get back up after a fall, not just the literal kind, but the emotional ones too. It's that quiet inner voice that says, "I can handle this, even when things don't go as planned." Every parent has seen their child crumble after disappointment, a lost game, a bad grade, a friend who suddenly stops talking to them. Our first instinct is to rush in, to fix it, to protect them from pain. But Siegel and Bryson remind us that resilience isn't built by removing obstacles, it's built by helping our children navigate them. A yes brain child doesn't avoid difficulty, they face it with flexibility and hope. But to do that, they need a foundation of safety, empathy, and connection. In other words, resilience isn't toughness. It's courage built on trust. The authors share a powerful idea: when we shield children from every disappointment, we may actually make life harder for them in the long run. A child who never experiences frustration never learns that frustration can be survived. A child who's always rescued from failure never learns that failure can be repaired. True resilience isn't about avoiding struggle, it's about believing you can get perfectly. A mother describes how her son, Liam, gets easily discouraged whenever he can't master something right away, whether it's tying his shoes or finishing a puzzle. Instead of cheering, "You can do it," or stepping in to fix the puzzle for him, she learns from the yes brain child to slow down. She sits beside him and says, "It's really hard, huh? You're working so hard to get it." He nods, frustrated but calmer. Together they take a breath. She doesn't offer a solution, just presence. Minutes later, he figures it out himself. His eyes light up. And in that small victory, his brain learns something powerful: effort and persistence feel good. That's resilience, built not from success, but from supported struggle. Siegel and Bryson explain that resilience lives in a part of the brain called the prefrontal cortex, the thinking brain. But when children feel overwhelmed, the reactive brain takes over. That's why our calm support matters so much. When we stay present and connected, our stability helps their brain re-engage its calm, rational circuits. Over time, they internalize our presence. They become their own source of comfort. The authors offer a metaphor: think of resilience like a muscle. Every time a child faces a challenge, and we help them through it rather than around it, that muscle strengthens. But just like any muscle, it needs rest too. Constant stress without recovery breaks resilience down. So, building resilience isn't about pushing kids harder, it's about creating a rhythm between challenge and restoration, between stress and safety. That rhythm might look like this: your child struggles with homework, feels overwhelmed, takes a break, gets a hug, plays outside for a bit, and then tries again. It's not linear. It's a cycle of effort, emotion, and renewal. Each cycle teaches them, I can do hard things and still be okay. The authors also remind us that resilience is not the absence of emotion. Sometimes, parents tell kids, don't cry, or, it's not a big deal, trying to comfort them. But what children hear is, your feelings aren't valid. Instead, when we say, that really hurt, didn't it? Or, you're sad because that mattered to you, we teach them that emotions aren't dangerous, they're part of being human. That acceptance is what gives kids the courage to feel their feelings without fear. Siegel and Bryson describe a girl named Ella who struggles with anxiety about piano recitals. Her father used to say, don't worry, it'll be fine, but it never helped. After learning about the yes brain, he starts responding differently: you're nervous, and that makes sense, performing in front of people is hard. Then he helps her breathe slowly and visualize herself playing with confidence. Over time, Ella learns not to avoid her anxiety but to face it with tools and support. Her confidence grows, not because the anxiety disappears, but because she learns she can handle it. Resilience isn't about never falling, it's about believing you can get back up. The book also challenges the myth that resilience means independence. In truth, resilience begins with connection. The most resilient kids aren't those who never rely on anyone, they're the ones who know someone has their back. When children feel securely attached to their parents, they can take more risks, explore more freely, and recover from setbacks faster. Because deep down, they know they're not alone. To nurture this, Siegel and Bryson suggest simple, intentional moments of connection: a daily check-in before bedtime, a quick hug before school, a just because conversation about their day. These micro-moments create what the authors call a resilience reservoir. Every drop of love, empathy, and laughter fills that inner tank, giving kids emotional fuel to draw from when things get tough. But what about us, the parents? The truth is, resilience begins with our yes brain too. When we lose patience, when we feel tired or discouraged, our kids feel it. That's not failure, it's reality. What matters is how we recover. When we apologize, take responsibility, or show that we can calm ourselves down, we're teaching resilience by example. We're saying, even adults mess up, but we can make things right. That message is pure gold to a child. As Siegel and Bryson put it, resilience is a family practice. Every setback, a broken toy, a lost soccer game, a harsh word, can become a lesson in repair and renewal. We can model that by showing curiosity instead of judgment. What did you learn? What could you do differently next time? These aren't lectures, they're invitations to reflection. And when our children succeed after failing, we can praise not just the result, but the process. You kept trying, you didn't give up, you figured it out. That kind of recognition reinforces effort, not perfection, and teaches kids that mistakes are just stepping stones to growth. Resilience is the soul of the yes brain. It's what transforms everyday struggles into opportunities for strength. It's what teaches children that they don't need to fear hard things, because they have what it takes inside to handle them. As we close this chapter, imagine your child facing a challenge tomorrow, maybe a test, a disagreement, or a disappointment. What if, instead of trying to smooth the path for them, you simply stood beside them and said, I believe in you. I know you can do this. That quiet faith is the seed of resilience. And when it's watered with love and patience, it grows into confidence that lasts a lifetime. In the next chapter, Siegel and Bryson take us deeper into another key aspect of the yes brain, insight, the ability to understand our own thoughts and feelings and how they shape our behavior. Because the more insight a child has, the more power they have to choose their response, not just react. Chapter 4. Insight is like turning on a light inside your child's mind. It allows them to see what's happening within, to recognize their feelings, understand their thoughts, and notice how those thoughts and feelings shape their actions. Without insight, kids are often at the mercy of their emotions. A wave of anger comes, and they lash out. Anxiety builds, and they freeze or refuse. They're reacting, not reflecting. But when children learn to observe what's happening inside them, when they can say, "I'm really angry right now," or "I'm feeling nervous, that's why I'm quiet," they gain power over their behavior. They're no longer driven by it. That's the heart of the yes brain approach, helping kids develop the awareness to respond thoughtfully instead of reacting automatically. Siegel and Bryson explain that insight grows from connection and curiosity. When parents approach a child's emotions with interest instead of irritation, we teach them to look inward without shame. It starts with us asking gentle questions like, "What do you think made you so upset?" or "Where do you feel that worry in your body?" Over time, these questions teach children to pause, notice, and name their inner experience. It might sound simple, but it's revolutionary. Because insight doesn't just calm behavior, it builds emotional intelligence, resilience, and empathy. When children understand themselves, they're more likely to understand about 9-year-old Ben, who often lashes out at his younger sister during playtime. His parents, frustrated, used to scold him, "Stop being mean." But it never worked. After learning about the yes brain, they try something new. Instead of punishment, they start a calm conversation later, once everyone is settled. "What was happening for you when your sister took your toy?" they ask. At first Ben shrugs, but eventually he says, "I don't know. I just felt mad, like she always gets to go first." That's the opening. His parents validate the feeling, "That's frustrating, huh?" And then help him explore it. "Next time, what could you do instead of hitting?" They're not just solving a behavior problem, they're helping Ben develop insight. He learns to connect his feeling, mad, his thought, "She always gets to go first," and his action, hitting. This awareness gives him choices. The next time he feels that surge of frustration, he pauses. He remembers the conversation. And for the first time, he says, "I'm mad," instead of lashing out. That's the power of insight. It's like giving a child a mirror, one that reflects not judgment, but understanding. Siegel and Bryson emphasize that insight isn't about overanalyzing or forcing emotional talk. It's about creating moments of reflection. Sometimes, that means simply naming what you see. "You seem really quiet. Are you worried about something?" or "That must have felt disappointing." These statements show kids that their inner life matters, and that it's safe to explore it. They also remind us that children develop insight gradually, depending on age and temperament. A toddler might just learn to say, "mad," when frustrated, while an older child might articulate, "I was embarrassed when my friends laughed." The goal isn't deep psychology, it's emotional fluency. It's helping each child move one step closer to understanding what's happening inside their mind. A key tool in this process is what Siegel and Bryson call, "name it to tame it." When we help kids label their emotions, their brains shift activity from the emotional centers, the amygdala, to the higher, logical centers, the prefrontal cortex. In other words, simply naming feelings helps regulate them. It's why saying, "I'm angry," feels less overwhelming than just being angry. They also suggest using storytelling as a gentle way to build insight. When a child tells the story of what happened, even something small, like a playground conflict, they're practicing reflection. As they narrate, their brain integrates emotion and logic, past and present, experience and meaning. The more they tell their stories, the stronger these insight pathways in the book become. Of a little girl named Sophie who has nightmares about getting lost. Instead of dismissing her fears, her parents encourage her to draw her dream and then tell the story. As she describes the details, her parents listen quietly, asking calm questions. What do you think your dream was trying to tell you? Over time, Sophie starts connecting her dream to real-life worries, like starting a new school. By understanding her fear, she feels less controlled by it. Her nightmares fade. Insight gives children the tools to connect the dots between their inner world and outer behavior. And that connection is what allows change. You can't fix what you don't see. But here's the beautiful paradox: the more insight a child develops, the less they need us to manage their emotions. They begin to self-regulate, to notice when they're off balance and use their own tools to find calm. That's the real goal of parenting, isn't it? To raise children who can eventually lead themselves. Of course, parents need insight too. Siegel and Bryson gently invite us to reflect on our own reactions. When your child's defiance triggers you, can you pause and ask, what's really going on inside me right now? Maybe it's fear, or exhaustion, or an echo from your own childhood. This self-insight helps us parent from consciousness instead of autopilot. Our calm self-awareness becomes the model for theirs. Insight, then, is not something we teach from above, it's something we grow alongside our children. When we stay curious about their inner world and our own, the home becomes a space of mutual understanding. Misbehavior turns into information. Conflict becomes conversation. And our children learn that emotions, no matter how big, are not enemies to fight but messages to listen to. As Siegel and Bryson say, when kids know themselves deeply, they don't just manage emotions better, they thrive in relationships, learn more easily, and live with confidence. Because when you understand your inner world, the outer world feels less threatening. So, as we move forward, think about the power of that inner mirror. How different might our homes feel if our children, and we, could pause in difficult moments and say, I see what's happening inside me right now. That one skill could change the entire emotional climate of a family. The next chapter takes us into the final core trait of the yes brain, empathy, the bridge between self-awareness and connection. If insight is understanding ourselves, empathy is understanding others, the key to compassion, kindness, and emotional maturity. Chapter 5. Empathy is what turns me into we. It's the bridge between understanding our own emotions and recognizing that other people have inner worlds just as real as ours. A child who develops empathy doesn't just know what others feel, they care about it. But empathy doesn't come naturally to all kids, and it certainly doesn't bloom overnight. Children aren't born with a fully developed ability to see life from another person's perspective. It has to be nurtured, modeled, and strengthened, moment by moment, experience by experience. Siegel and Bryson begin this chapter with a simple but powerful truth: children learn empathy by experiencing it first. When a parent meets a child's emotions with warmth and understanding, when they say, that must have really hurt, or, you sound frustrated, the child's brain records that experience as safety. That feeling of being seen and soothed becomes the template for how they'll respond to others. In other words, a child who is understood learns to understand. The authors explain that empathy lives in the same neural circuits that process connection and attachment. When a child feels close to their caregiver, oxytocin, the bonding hormone, flows through their body, creating a sense of belonging and openness. Over time, that same circuitry helps them tune into the feelings of their peers, siblings, and even strangers. One of the most relatable examples they share involves a little boy named Jack. Jack gets angry easily, especially during playdates. One afternoon, he grabs a toy from his friend Lily, who bursts into tears. Jack's mom, instead of scolding, kneels down and says softly, "Jack, look at Lily's face, do you see how sad she looks? She's crying because she really wanted to play with that toy." She waits, and something shifts. Jack hesitates, then hands the toy back. "I didn't mean to make her cry," he says quietly. That's empathy taking root, the moment when a child connects cause and effect between their actions and someone else's feelings. Gentle reflection instead of punishment teaches empathy far more effectively than lectures or guilt. When we help kids notice the emotional impact of their behavior, they naturally become more caring. But Siegel and Bryson also remind us that empathy requires emotional capacity. A child who's overwhelmed by their own big feelings can't easily tune in to someone else's. That's why empathy is built on the earlier yes brain skills: balance, resilience, and insight. When children can regulate themselves and understand their own emotions, they have the space to notice others. One beautiful exercise the authors recommend is what they call perspective pauses. When a conflict happens, pause and gently ask, "What do you think your brother felt when that happened?" Or, "How would you feel if your friend did that to you?" You're not forcing guilt, you're guiding awareness. With repetition, these small questions shape the brain's empathy circuits, helping kids automatically consider others' emotions before reacting. They share a story about a mom named Vanessa, whose daughter Ruby often teases her younger brother. Instead of punishing, Vanessa starts introducing empathy language into their everyday life. She says things like, "That might have hurt his feelings," or, "He looks sad, what do you think could help him feel better?" Over time, Ruby starts to notice on her own. One day, after her brother trips, she rushes over and says, "Are you okay? That must have hurt." Vanessa smiles. That small, spontaneous act is empathy coming to life. The authors also point out that empathy extends beyond kindness; it's a form of courage. It allows children to tolerate the discomfort of another person's pain without turning away. That's why emotional safety is key. A child who feels loved unconditionally has the strength to face difficult emotions, their own and others. Siegel and Bryson describe empathy as both feeling with and acting for others. It begins with compassion and often leads to generosity. But they're careful to warn parents not to overpraise kids for being nice. When kindness is tied to approval, "You're such a good boy for sharing," children may learn to perform empathy for validation. True empathy comes from genuine connection, not from seeking reward. This distinction echoes the spirit of the yes brain itself, doing the right thing because it feels right, not because it earns applause. They also remind parents to model empathy openly. When we speak respectfully about others, even when frustrated, our children notice. When we admit our own mistakes and apologize sincerely, we show them what repair looks like. When we comfort a friend or a neighbor, our children absorb the message that caring for others is part of life, must also extend inward. Just as children need to care for others, they need to learn to care for themselves, to speak kindly to their own mistakes and struggles. The inner voice of self-compassion becomes the foundation for empathy toward others. If a child learns, "It's okay that I messed up," they're less likely to judge harshly, themselves or anyone else. One memorable example from the book involves a teenage boy named Noah, who feels embarrassed after forgetting his lines in a school play. His parents could have brushed it off, "Don't worry, it wasn't a big deal." Instead, they say, "That must have felt awful, standing up there and forgetting. You really care about doing well." In that moment, they're modeling empathy and validating his pain. Later, Noah notices a classmate struggling during a presentation and whispers encouragingly, "You've got this." His parents' compassion for him becomes his compassion for others. Empathy, in the end, is both a skill and a mirror. The more we reflect it, the more it's reflected back. And just like every part of the yes brain, it begins with how we show up as parents: calm, connected, curious, and compassionate. As Siegel and Bryson conclude this chapter, they remind us that empathy isn't a luxury, it's the foundation of humanity. In a world that often rewards competition over connection, helping our children grow empathetic minds is one of the most powerful gifts we can give. It equips them not only to succeed, but to belong, to themselves, their families, and their communities. When a child can balance their emotions, recover from setbacks, understand their own mind, and care deeply for others, they're not just well-behaved, they're emotionally whole. That's the promise of the yes brain, a life guided by openness, curiosity, and compassion. And as we move into the final reflections of this book, Siegel and Bryson leave us with one more profound message, that the yes brain is not just a concept for children, but for us too. Because the more we live with a yes brain, open, resilient, and empathetic, the more we give our children permission to do the same. At its heart, the yes brain child isn't just about raising calmer, kinder kids, it's about transforming the way we see them. It's about shifting from control to connection, from reaction to reflection, from fear to curiosity. Siegel and Bryson remind us that every difficult behavior, every meltdown or moment of defiance, is not a sign of failure, it's communication. It's a child's brain asking for help. When we meet those moments not with anger or punishment but with understanding, we give our children the gift of safety, and that safety becomes the soil where all growth begins. A yes brain child is one who feels secure enough to explore, strong enough to bounce back, and aware enough to understand both their own emotions and those of others. They're not perfect, but they're timeless. It doesn't promise quick fixes or flawless families. It gives us something far more powerful, the tools to build connection, emotional intelligence, and lifelong resilience. It teaches us that balance comes from presence. That resilience grows through love and patience. That insight blooms when we listen instead of lecture. And that empathy, that quiet understanding of another person's heart, is what turns a house into a home. In the end, the yes brain child is really an invitation, not just for our children, but for us. It asks us to pause before reacting, to see beyond behavior, and to parent not from fear, but from faith, faith that our kids are learning, evolving, and capable of so much more than we can see in the heat of the moment. Because every time we choose connection over control, we're helping our child's brain say, yes, to life, yes to growth, yes to kindness, yes to becoming the best version of who they are meant to be. So maybe the next time your child melts down or pushes back, you'll take a breath and remember, this is a chance, not a catastrophe. A chance to help them find balance, build resilience, deepen insight, and feel empathy. A chance to grow together. And if this reflection resonated with you, remember, parenting isn't about perfection, it's about connection. If you found this helpful, subscribe for more audiobook-style parenting summaries designed to bring peace, perspective, and heart back into your family life. Because sometimes, the smallest shift in understanding can change everything. Thank you for listening.